Hello, I am your teacher, Mr. Pacitti. Yeah! And this is my classroom here in Memphis, Tennessee. So put away your mobile phones, put away your pain, put away your shame. You're not to blame. How are you supposed to know dogs couldn't feed themselves? It's time to concentrate, it's time to study. This is SmackDown Live and this is Graded. We start off with a crappy little mobile phone promo from Shane McMahon, who reveals that he will not be on SmackDown Live tonight. And there is one man to blame for that, and that man is Kevin Owens. And I think he maybe sort of teased an I quit match at the end. He said that he's going to make Kevin Owens say, I quit. Maybe that'll get added next week. It doesn't matter. It's time for a match. Let's go to the ring. And what a ruddy good match this was. Drew McIntyre versus Kevin Owens. This one could have been full of interference, shenanigans. We could have seen Elias come out. Shane McMahon could have been in the building all along, maybe Jinder Mahal and Heath Slater for a sweet-ass 3MB reunion. None of that happened, we just got a wonderful match. Owens cuts a quick promo before the match, running down Shane McMahon and generally just being correct in everything he says. Then out comes Drew McIntyre, who bops Kevin Owens on the noggin with the microphone and then throws him over the announce table for a hot start. Back from the break, the two men are in the ring. Ring the bell, Drew McIntyre immediately laying in some big strikes and then some even bigger rest holds. And then Kevin Owens nails a cannonball senton in the corner and then goes up for the frog splash, hits it for a great near fall, and the crowd are hot, and so are you. Owens with a senton from the top rope for another 2 count, and then Drew McIntyre nails Owens with a headbutt and then a sit-down gunslinger, shout out to my boy Billy Gunn, for another 2 count. Lots and lots of near falls here, great stuff. Drew then sets up for the Claymore but eats a super kick and then a pop-up powerbomb, but you guessed it, it's another 2 count. Drew then hits a Celtic cross from the top rope. Big shout out to my boy Fit Finlay, who just got buried twice in 2 nights. Fit Finlay to AEW, confirmed. Let's skip to the finish. Owens hits a big stunner on the announce table where I guess it hurts Drew McIntyre more maybe, but quickly gets him back in the ring. Another stunner, 1, 2, 3. Your winner is Kevin Owens, and I like this match a lot. A- for this one. The opening promo stuff didn't go on too long. It didn't drag at all, and the match itself was a super competitive one. I wasn't the biggest fan of the finish. Drew McIntyre eating a stunner on the outside and then pretty much just standing straight back up, getting back in the ring and taking another one. I think Kevin Owens, where the stunner is still relatively new as a finisher to him, that should be a bit more protected, but overall, you know, that's just a minor gripe, and yeah, I enjoyed this one a lot. And I think the right result too. Some may be frustrated that Drew McIntyre isn't on the SummerSlam card. Sure, he might get involved in Owens versus McMahon, time will tell, but he did look hard as hell here. He kicked out of lots and lots of stuff, so did Kevin Owens. It was a competitive match, Drew looking like a badass even in defeat. Dolph Ziggler then says some stuff backstage in a very raspy voice, but enough of that, it's time for some tag team action. Alexa Bliss and Nikki Cross taking on the SmackDown Women's Champion Bayley and Ember Moon. A nice enough match here, Bayley and Ember almost immediately taking things to the outside. Later on, a nice bit of heel work. You know where Nikki Cross traps her opponent in the ring apron? They did that, and then Alexa goes and hits a big drop kick and then gets in Bayley's face going, oh, Bayley, and then slaps her hard. Lovely stuff. Alexa Bliss, one of the best heels in the biz. Great character work. But let's just go to the finish. Ember Moon gets tagged in, a big flurry of offense, and then nails the Eclipse on Nikki Cross, but gets thrown into the ring post. Alexa Bliss hits Twisted Bliss and picks up the win for Team Bad Guy Girl. So the match itself was fine, but the result, I'm not so convinced. Ember Moon already feels like she's not on Bayley's level, so having Ember be the one to eat the pin here to me made no sense at all. We're less than 2 weeks away from SummerSlam now, and if you want the audience to invest in Ember Moon as somebody who actually has a chance of winning that match, beating Bayley, then this definitely is not the way to do it. After the match, Bayley hits a Bayley to belly on Ember Moon because there's your receipt, you stupid bitch, and that's the end of the segment. I'm going to give this one a C-, but that is a grade that is more reflective of the booking than the match itself. The booking really did drag this one down for me because I just don't think it made that much sense. Daniel Bryan is now backstage to make his huge announcement. What could it be? We're not going to find out, obviously. He just sort of walks away in a bit of a huff. So let's go back to ringside, where it's time for a very special edition of the King's Court with everybody's favourite grubby old pervert, Jerry Lawler. So Jerry does a bit of pandering, and then out comes Trish Stratus to a big pop. They waste no time in plugging her Instagram and then bigging up Kelly for being the first ever women's 24/7 champion, because that's what we all want to hear from this segment, that's for sure. And Trish Stratus says she still has a bit of an itch to get back in the ring for one more match, but she can't do that anymore because she's a mum. And then suddenly, that's not Kevin Owens music, that's Charlotte Flair. Charlotte Flair interrupts. So Charlotte Flair complains that she doesn't have a match at SummerSlam and says that Trish Stratus saying that she's a mum is nothing but an excuse, and then challenges Trish Stratus to a match at SummerSlam. We all saw it coming. Trish doesn't accept straight away, so Charlotte starts running her down, saying that, hey, I'm Charlotte Flair, I'm the head of the women's division, and that's a division that's making real change in pro wrestling, whereas you, Trish, you are nothing more than a model. You're a glorified model, and it's all about me now. So Trish ends up losing it and using the biggest word that WWE seem to be able to get away with, and Trish calls her a bitch. She uses the B word, that word that they keep wheeling out when they want a big reaction from the crowd, and then ends up accepting the challenge. And we're going to get Trish Stratus versus Charlotte Flair at SummerSlam for some reason. So the two stare down. This was a bit of a predictable segment, but I'm not going to complain about it too much. I'm not especially excited for Trish Stratus versus Charlotte Flair. I don't think Charlotte needs the rub at all, but at the same time, it's in Toronto. It's Trish Stratus' hometown, and it'll probably be really special for the crowd there, and the crowd will be into it, so I actually think this is going to be quite a fun match, even if it doesn't mean that much. This was a predictable segment, and one that gets a C+, but I will say that if Trish Stratus wants one more match, then the most sensible choice of woman to get the best match possible out of her, whether you like it or not, is Charlotte Flair. Oh, and before we move on, don't forget to follow me on Instagram at Adam Pacitti, and a big shout out to Kelly. We then get a quick Firefly Funhouse episode. This one is presented by Ramblin' Rabbit, who is Finn Balor's biggest fan. But Finn, you made a mistake because you have unleashed the Fiend, and now you are bollocked. Dolph Ziggler versus Finn Balor is up next, but this is less of a match and more the continuation of storyline. You'll see what I mean in a second. So the two wrestle for 2.5 minutes. They never really get going, but as Finn Balor sets up for that over-the-top rope dive that he does, the lights go out, we hear that familiar sound effect, and then the light comes back on and the Fiend is in the ring. The lights go out again, they come back on, and the Fiend has disappeared. This causes a distraction, and then Dolph nails Finn with the super kick, pins him, 1, 2, 3, Dolph Ziggler wins. All good stuff here. It actually achieved quite a lot in a very short amount of time, so I'm going to give this a B. Dolph Ziggler could have done with the win here, which he got because he's lost quite a few high-profile matches recently, and all of the Bray Wyatt stuff was just really impactful and cool. The Firefly Funhouse episode was great and called Finn Balor out with the sort of the mind games and all that stuff, and then the Fiend appearing is just great anyway. Penultimate match, Nakamura versus Ali. Nakamura, of course, the IC champion. The title is not on the line here. This was just super fast-paced, so Ali just goes at him straight away, going for dives and crossbodies and all sorts. But we get to the end, and Nakamura keeps going for Kinshasas, but Ali has him scouted. He dodges the first one, he dodges the second one, he then dodges the third one, rolls up Nakamura, and wins. This definitely felt pretty rushed. It only lasted a few minutes, but it did leave me wanting to see more between these two. I thought their match at Smackville the other day was quite good, and then a short match here. I think Ali picking up the win here was actually the right decision. Normally I would complain about 50-50 booking, but if there's any chance of the IC title actually appearing and being defended at SummerSlam, then Ali sort of had to win this one because we're only a week and a half away from SummerSlam itself. We've only got one more episode of SmackDown, so I think Ali winning was the right choice. I just hope that Ali versus Nakamura doesn't end up on the pre-show, but it probably will. Main event time, and it is champion versus champion. The US champion AJ Styles taking on Kofi Kingston, the WWE champion, and both titles aren't on the line. I really like this match. It was chaotic. It was a bit all over the place. There were distractions and interference. At one point, AJ Styles was being pinned. It looked like the match was all over, and Gallows and Anderson just yanked Kofi Kingston out, which should have led to a DQ, and then it all just breaks down on the outside. Kofi Kingston Kingston takes everyone out with a dive. It was really manic. Let's skip to the finish. AJ goes for a phenomenal forearm, but Kofi Kingston catches him mid-air with a Trouble in Paradise. It looked great. Kofi Kingston picking up the win, and the right result again. AJ Styles, the US champion, shouldn't be beating the WWE champion, especially if those two aren't wrestling at an upcoming pay-per-view, which they're not. So yeah, this all made total sense to me. Once again, it felt rushed. Time constraints definitely played their part here, because as soon as the match ended, before Kofi really got a chance to celebrate, we go straight backstage for the real main event, the closing segment, which is just not, I should probably give this one a grade. B+ for Kofi versus AJ, but I just want to talk about Big Dog Crush. Goodness me. So Roman is backstage, approaching the backstage interview area, and he's walking. It's a weird camera shot. It's not one that we see a lot. And then all of a sudden, the speakers and the scaffolding and the rigging and all of that sort of stuff starts toppling towards him and crushes Roman Reigns. But he's down there for like, I don't know, 20 seconds, 30 seconds, and then he gets up and just sort of shrugs it off and literally goes, I'm fine, and that's the end of SmackDown. Roman Reigns walking away looking a bit perplexed as to what's just happened, but he's fine. He's just been crushed, but he's fine. He's the big dog. So a very odd end to this episode of SmackDown, and I'm not sure what to grade it. I hate not giving grades because I think it's such a cop-out, but in this case, I can't give this a grade. I am looking forward to seeing where this leads. Sure, it wasn't as visually impactful as Braun Strowman pushing all the staging on top of Kane and Lesnar, or even Vince McMahon being crushed by the staging to end $1 Million Mania because people were rickrolling him and he was giving too much money away. It wasn't as cool as that by any means, but it was still intriguing, I guess. Who did this? Was it on purpose? It looked like it was being pushed. Maybe it was the cameraman from that film, the Hobbs and Shaw thing that Roman Reigns took out with a hammer the other day. That's a match for you. Roman versus Hobbs and Shaw cameraman. What am I on about? A largely fun episode of SmackDown. I think the highlights were A largely fun episode of SmackDown. I think the highlights for me were Drew and Owens at the beginning, and then The Fiend appearing. As I say, I still get excited whenever that happens, not sexually. This episode of SmackDown gets a B+. This to me felt like one of those episodes of SmackDown from like a year ago, by which I mean that it was just largely entertaining throughout. There was nothing bad on the show, unless you count the last segment, which I can't quite work out still. I'm veering on like funny bad. Was it bad? Let me know what you think in the comments. So there's no joke this week. I'm not quite sure what to make of all this, but I will say one thing. To whoever stole my glasses, I will find you. I have contacts. Thanks for watching. Let us know what you think in the comments down below. You can follow us on Twitter at Cultaholic. You can find us on Facebook at facebook.com/Cultaholic. If you enjoy what we do here at Cultaholic, you can pledge to us on Patreon. That's patreon.com/Cultaholic. And most importantly, don't forget to hit subscribe and join us.